Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of On the Line. This is actually episode number 17. 17 episodes so far. And as usual, I'm joined by my co host, Jonathan Bolt. And, Jonathan, what's going on?
So I wanted to ask about releases. The first time we met, you had said the what you prefer to teach most of your students is a thumb release, and that you could basically get me more points if I went to a thumb. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
And you actually, well, when we were at the shop the other day during the event, I showed you a couple things about shooting one of these that you hadn't seen before, didn't I?
Yes, yes,
And they are different.
very different.
Most people don't talk about firing them this way. This is the way that I teach all my girls how to shoot it. But we can get into that in a bit. But so to start with, you're, from what I understand, and as we've had this conversation before, you usually teach people how to use a wrist strap, correct?
Yes, or a
Okay.
hinge.
Or a hinge, both of which I have here. Actually, I have two different types of hinges, but regular hinge, and I've got what they call the static non-moving hinge. We'll get into that in a minute. But regular hinge, this is what they tell people is the number one thing if you want to have surprise shots. Don't get me started on what I think about that. It's also the number one thing if you like to lose teeth, break a nose, things like that. Because if you're not experienced with using one of these, well, Jonathan, you tell them what happens if you're not experienced using one of these things.
So I've been using Hinge for 8 years now. When I first tried it, I did not understand how to make it go off. And I'm not gonna lie, I punched myself in the mouth at least 3 times. Um, yeah, it's not fun. I
Like I
still
said,
like,
I've
I
seen
still like my hinge. Don't get me wrong. I still like hinges. Still like index triggers. I still like thumbs. But yeah, you if you don't know what you're doing, you can and will punch yourself in the face.
my problem with a hinge is most people think that a hinge is the cure to all their target panic, to shooting better and everything. It is not. If you don't want to have to worry about a button, then people shoot a hinge. That's basically what it is. Some people will hunt with a hinge. I know people who do that.
So do I.
I've done it before.
I wouldn't.
Not when you want it to go off unless you know how to set it off. And if you're doing that, you're probably going to punch it anyway. So, not a good idea. But for the most part, the standard accepted thing is always teaching with a wrist strap. Like I said, I have my girls after, once they're confident with their shooting, which is about 2 or 3 months in, I set them up with a handheld button. But the wrist strap, it it has its purpose. Now, what's your number one thing for shooting with a wrist strap when you're teaching someone new?
Um, First things first, trigger behind the finger behind the trigger. Make sure it fits nice. Um, and then the first thing I try to get them to do once we're actually shooting with it is to lay their finger on the top of the trigger.
Okay.
I find.
As I'm putting it like this, see, I shoot mine here if I'm going to shoot it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm all the way deep. The most common thing to see with new shooters is this, unfortunately, like that. And
End of the
one of
finger.
the one of the reasons why I don't tell people to do this as the permanent solution, like they can do it while they're learning, and that has a lot of advantages to it. Number one, you're not going to drop it because if it's hung on there, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, this is a hunter version of a wrist strap, and the one thing you'll see is I can fold this back and out of the way. Well, when it's actually lubed up, this thing's been sitting for a while. There, I can fold it back and out of the way and keep it on me at all times. So I can still climb a tree stand. I can do whatever I want. It never has to come off. But while that's an advantage, you're seeing the disadvantage of it right now. So you see what happens, how it moves. That's one of my major problems. Now, when you're starting off with new shooters, for me, consistency is key. Teaching them to be consistent one shot to the other. This can be made consistent, but you got to do some stuff and you have to do it the same way every time. One thing I suggest is taking a thick, like tennis, wristband or something like that, putting it on here, and then putting it over it. And then you can cinch it on there because if you look, this one is pretty much as tight as it's going to get on me. And it looks like it won't move, which I'll show you in a second. I'm putting this on, and here's the deal with it. I put it on, I tighten it up, and everything looks secure. The only problem with that is at full draw, this thing has a lot of pressure on it. And what will happen is it'll start to crawl up your arm. So you start to see it crawl around your palm. Most people only recognize the crawl where it's moving. There's another problem entirely that most people do not see, which is why I don't get them used to doing this too long. If you look at my hand, when there's pressure on it, which I'm going to use a string that I have here. One of the things of making your own bowstrings like Flemish twist is you always have a ton of them laying around. So if you're going to see here, as I put pressure, see what's happening to my look at my hand is relaxed. See how my hand is collapsing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is causing undue tension on your hand. And as that starts to happen, if I were to leave my hand like this, it would start to turn red and then all that. Imagine a new person who's brand new and this is happening to them. Now all of a sudden they're trying to get the trigger and you notice I have like no range of motion anymore because my hand is being choked off like this. You can even see my hand almost changing color right now from this. Imagine pulling a 70-pound bow with this thing. Improperly set up, that's going to happen. Other thing with this is, like I said, besides it moving, the inconsistency that you can sometimes get depending on how hard you're actually, and this is the problem this is my number one problem. My number one problem is this. People grab it like this. You see how I have it inside my hand? And they pull with their arm, meaning they're putting all kinds of pressure here, putting all kinds of pressure on the back. What that does is it gives you an unnatural pull. It'll never be the same way twice because your hand is tense. And you can't release normally if your hand is tense. Now, all I tell people is here's a test to know if your release skill is correct or not. And all you got to do is hold your hand like this and try to wiggle your fingers. Now, put pressure on the middle of your palm, like trying to crush your palm. Try to wiggle your fingers. You can't. It's just like, stuck. This is not what you want to do. So you always want to have it so that you're relaxed, you're fine. And unfortunately, with one of these, sometimes that'll happen. But for a brand new person, this is what you want to do. You want to have them with something like this because they can't throw the release through the bow.
Yes.
Boy, can't they do it. If you start somebody out with this right away, unfortunately, they don't have full control of when they're firing. And a common thing to do is instead of shooting it, hey, let it go. Now, this one's not going to happen that way. That's why most of my girls shoot this because it's got the little loop. Okay, so I can go right through there. The likelihood of this going to go right through because of the way it's sitting, it's really not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But an open one, and you've seen the open ones or styles like this. There you go. Even Ultra View, everybody for the most part, only Carter and one or two other companies will make one that's got a closed loop like this. And then if they do have it, the other companies that make one, I think Scott is one of them makes them like that.
Stan
They don't have,
too.
huh?
Stan has one too.
Yeah, they don't have the lock like this. So like this can close it, and that's it. You're ready to go. Whereas the other ones, you kind of got to set it, and then you got to close the front to engage it. The new stand is really nice because you kind of just slip it right in there, which is great. But for the most part, most of them aren't like that. But if I have one that doesn't have this loop, there's a tendency with new people to just relax their hand all the way, and the release goes, it flies through the bow, damages the bow. Sometimes it wrecks the riser. It's definitely going to wreck the release. All kinds of things can happen.
Heck,
So
hit your hand, that hurts too.
yeah. And as someone who will tell you, Carter makes some of the best releases in the world. I've been using them for over, I think it's almost 30 years, maybe. But This particular one. They're not cheap. Thumb releases can run anywhere from 250 all the way up to $400. So, and the more sensitive, depending on how it's built on the inside, they can be super, super expensive. You don't want to wreck this starting out. So I usually have people go to this after they've got some degree of control. But that's why I start them out with that. Like I said, the wrist strap has its place, teaching people who are brand new how to do this, giving them that confidence. And then the idea is to step off of that and move on to something else. You'll see a lot more hunters using these than target shooters, except for Tim Gillingham, because that guy likes to shoot one of these and does all kinds of stuff with it. But that's Tim. That's not the average human being. And if anybody knows who Tim Gillingham is, he is anywhere but the average human being the way he does things. So I don't suggest trying to do what he does. But most hunters will use this because they're afraid of dropping the release from the tree stand. You can't hook it on, you can't do all kinds of stuff, but you're always going to have this thing strapped to you. And if that's what you need, if that's the confidence you need, there's nothing wrong with it. If you can get proficient, learn how to shoot it, hey, more power to you. No problem. I teach people how to use those. But like I said, for competition shooting, generally, I put them on a button. But that's my take on that sort of thing. So what else do you want to know besides that? Like, when do I put people in a hinge, if ever?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that one. Um, yeah, never. Um,
Hinges to me are voodoo, black magic that isn't true. It's a lot of bro science. It's a lot of stuff that's been around forever because people didn't know how to shoot right at the first place. So, like, I can't control my release. Yeah, you're supposed to be able to stay in control of it. They don't believe it, and they need a surprise shot.
mhm.
Why do you need a surprise shot? Because you have no follow through. You're not really static and pulling any one of a number of things. And basically, as they tell you now that controlled shooting and Joel Turner is popular again, you have to have control from the whole thing because there is an explosion that happens when you fire, and your body subconsciously is scared of it. It doesn't make a difference if you've done it 1,000 times. So you fire your bow, it knows that when you fire, there's going to be a reflex coming back of energy from there. And your body is protecting itself against getting hurt from it. But in reality, it's not dangerous at all. It shouldn't bother you. Just taking a while to get over that. Some people believe the hinge is the way to go. I don't, but they do. Just my opinion on that. Now, as far as other releases go, so people, this is something that I've tried to show people. So this one's about 20 years old that I have. It's an old True Ball. Okay. I think it's an HT. I'm not really sure. I keep it as a museum piece. And if you're feeling down on yourself and you want to hurt yourself when you're shooting, I offer it to you like, here, do it with this. So I can take a picture of you and still have it to show you, like, I told him not to and he still did it. But hey, whatever. But this is what they call a sear hinge because it has moving parts that have to slip. Then you have this one. And this one, in case you didn't notice, there is no moving part.
Mhm.
This one actually relies off triggering the angle. Okay. So one of the other reasons why I do what I do with my releases and teach them to use those is very simple. It's what I showed you when I was at the shop.
Mhm.
So this finger, this nerve here is one of the most twitch responsive, I call it, nerves in the entire body. You can twitch this by mistake easily. Maintaining control of that is really hard. Not saying it can't be done, but it's super hard. So when we teach to shoot a trigger like that, we just tell you embed it back here. Why? Because you can pull this with pressure, but you try pulling this with pressure, you're going to punch it almost every time. When it comes to this, okay, and when I showed this to you, it kind of got you, didn't it?
It did. It did. It,
um,
it did.
so one of
Like
the
getting used to.
one of the coaches that I worked with, who used to coach at the PSC factory. I don't know if he's still teaching courses there or if because he was a real good friend with Pete Shapley, and Pete would bring him in. And this guy had coached national teams in Argentina, I think, or somewhere in South America, but he came from Russia. Alexander Kirilov, probably one of the most brilliant guys you can ever meet as far as coaching goes. And one of the things that then when I worked with him a little bit that he said was the biggest problem people have is they want to grip a release like this, which is not consistent. And when they fire it, they literally have a problem and they forget you got to pull, not pull it out like this, trying to pull back because you can't separate this shoulder, but you want to pull in the circular motion, which actually moves your hand straight. This is got to be maintaining pressure as you go back. The problem, most people, is they start using this and they can't pull and they're afraid to go what I call with the monkey paw, where if you've ever seen a monkey hang from monkey bars, they can hang like this all day, just grabbing the bar like that.
Mm-hmm.
Humans have the same ability because you could literally hang that in here, put any amount of weight, and not try to deliberately hold it. Your hand will stay that way. It's designed to do it. But most people get afraid of it, and then you start seeing them do something like this, or this is the most common that I'll see on the line. I see a mountain in their hand. That's bad. So the way that Alexander used to say was he'd have you put your arm on a table and he would have you pull. And if you bent your arm, you did it wrong. But there's a way to pull and pull with your shoulder. You can actually do it like this. So if you see my arm right now, if I'm pulling it, I'm bending my arm. But if I pull my shoulder, my arm doesn't move. See, I can actually just make a small movement and my arm still moves back. That's enough to fire a release.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to firing a trigger, okay, John Dudley preaches this kind of embedding this in here. He actually likes to have people do one of these where you've got your finger extended and this is how you're setting it off. You notice that day I went over and I said, there's a certain part in your hand where it's going to fit, where it won't sink in. It'll just stay right there. And there's a small millimeter difference one way or the other where you find that. But if you're in the wrong spot, and we all know that replacing thumbs on triggers, that's what everybody does, all different shapes, all different sizes. Since everybody's got a 3D printer today, or they can order online for $5, everybody does it.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is that if you can't get consistency, you'll see them all knurled. You'll see them with like big wavy knurls on them and stuff like that. And the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to find something that's going to grip on their hand. Well, you don't see any grips on this one, right? I mean, they made it rough so it doesn't slip, but I don't use it like that. So when I'm setting it in my hand, okay, there's a certain part over here that I'll put it in, and I can do it fine in there. It's not going to move. And if you look at it right now, it's not moving. It's kind of staticky, stuck in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the thing that you've got to do with this, if you fire in this method, is first you've got to get your thumb locked into this place that it doesn't go anywhere. Get your string. Practice this with a string. Don't practice it with a bow. Not yet. Lock on. Get in here, right? Now, I'm going to relax my hand completely. Try to see if you can detect, okay? Now you see, it's actually better if I do it like this. Try to see if you can detect where I'm firing it. So I'm going to lock. Boom. Now, you didn't see me depress the trigger because I didn't. See, I'm here, I'm in, and all I'm going to do is this. 95% of the people who are watching this, unless they're a coach or some kind of a mechanics master, will not realize what I did to set that off. And the standard way to start to set these things off is to just go like this and either pull this, twitch response, don't do it. Very, very trigger panicky if you're not careful. Or to set it off in here and then start putting, don't ask me why people do this. Set it here and start putting pressure here to set it off. So you're actually making the thumb do it. Again, when you do that, I think John Dudley's the only person I ever heard mention this. There's what they call the rocker angle. Now, you familiar with that term, Jonathan?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So every release, I'll put this one up here. If you see it, every release has a exit direction from the release. So you can see it's the way that the string would travel out of the teeth of the release. Well, you see how this release is right now. If I really, really change that angle, then it'll go straight. But then there's a point where it'll start doing this. You don't want that. Or if it's like this, it'll literally never turn straight towards the target, and then you're into a big problem. And the problem with firing a thumb release like this, if you're squeezing on that, chances are this thing is going to be inverted when you fire, because just the act of pulling it, look what happens to the, I'll leave my hand open so you can see it, but look what happens to the release. It starts to tilt this way. And when it tilts this way, it's turning in. The result, you could get weird lefts, weird rights, depending on which way you're putting pressure on it. Some of them have entirely different, and I don't care what anyone says, every single release has a different jaw angle on there. They just do that. Stan has a jaw angle. Actually, the latest release they came out with, they changed the neck length, because that's the other thing. If you don't have a jaw angle differential, you have a neck length differential. So where it sits on you in your face, the neck could be all the way in. It could be out further. How does yours fit you when you're shooting something like that?
Fits good. I mean, I anchor here, so
Mm-hmm.
it's
So you want it to come this far out of your hand. Yeah. Now, if you ever try to shoot an ultra view, the first ultra view thumb button, it was out to here, because they made it towards hunters and they wanted to make sure that they had enough string length and all that. If you start getting random lengths, don't switch releases, because your impact is going to be way different. I shoot this release and I shoot another release where this is completely different. I got something else coming to me. Just like if I shoot this and then I switch to, and I know you haven't seen one of these in a while, this is what, I mean, they used to have even weirder ones than this. This is late 90s, I'd say, but this is a caliper release. This one used to load like this. You had to literally close it and pray it never opened. But all that pressure, when they go bad, they just start opening on their own. But for the most part, when it's loaded, now look how far this one is on my face as opposed to this one.
yeah.
It's a big difference. See what I mean? So they tell you, oh, your draw length doesn't change. They're absolutely right. Your draw length never changes. Your anchor might get totally screwed if you start switching between releases. This here, this is the Carter, wise choice. And this is another Carter, but this is manufactured for knock-on. John Dudley preaches the less fingers involved, the better. So the rocker release is the same on this one as this one, because they're basically the same one, just cut down. So you could switch interchangeably between these two. And the problem is this one, you're going to have a hard time firing this one with this method. So like I was saying with this one here, when you want to fire it, get it into that spot where it doesn't move. And you can make this, there are other ones that get extensions, whatever. But for the most part, you want to get it lined up in there so that it's comfortable in your hand and you can not put a lot of pressure on it. You're just going to lock it so it doesn't move. And when I'm firing it, what I actually do, which I'll click this one on so you can see it. When I'm firing it, right, all I'm doing is I'm putting pressure on my ring finger. So I'm pulling with my rear shoulder, but I'm putting pressure with my ring finger and keeping that locked in there. So my thumb never moves. All it's doing is my thumb is keeping it static. And by keeping it static, if you look at the release angle, it's perfectly straight. So here, straight. When I fire, I've got this locked, and all I'm doing is, okay, that's That was a studio light that attacked me. The ghost of a coach that doesn't like me telling anybody about this. Go figure. I actually want give me a second. I want to make sure that this thing doesn't come down on me while I'm doing this.
You
Please.
okay?
Okay, so
Take two.
I'm not cutting it. That's gonna stay in here. That was just the weirdness that happens. Somebody doesn't like me giving away secrets. What can I tell you? But people, we record this live, and I never edit it out. So what you see is what you get. If you see something walking around in back of me, like my door just opened, Jesus, oh boy, what's going on with that? Yeah, we're getting weird here. But like I said, some old coaches didn't like their secrets being spilled. Anyway, so if I'm doing this right, I'm keeping the rocker angle right, and all I'm doing is putting pressure on my ring finger. Goes off. Notice that I could do that, and my hand didn't do this. It didn't do anything crazy. It just went straight. You don't need anything else besides that. When you try, I showed you this. How did it feel when you fired off the release like that the first time?
Weird.
Uh
It
huh.
felt good, but
Because it's different.
it's something completely different than I've ever done.
Now, firing it like that, do you think that you can control, set it off when you wanted to if you were shooting outside or something like
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. I definitely felt like I had a lot more control um as to when I can make it go off. Because so when if you've never shot outside in a 3D course, you don't have control of the weather. Um, and sometimes it's blowing like crazy, and the wind is blowing, and um, yeah, you literally feel your bow being pushed left to right. Um, and if it dies down for a second, sometimes you want to just go off when you want to go off. It's the same when you're hunting too, though. You don't always get to you don't have a lot of time necessarily to get the shot off. So that's why I don't like a hinge for hunting. Um, I was using a hinge for 3D for a lot of things, and I did pretty well, but I was seeing some inconsistencies. And that's what we're talking about now is making it go off when you want it to.
So, how many people have you seen lock up using a hinge even when they're shooting indoors, like at
All the
Lancaster
time.
or something like that?
All the time. I hear guys saying all the time that they can't make it go off.
That, unfortunately, for the most part, is because of the way people are taught to fire in the hinge. And the hinge has the same thing that goes on with it. But when they draw back a hinge, because people don't want the string to get let go, you'll find that most of them they keep it unnaturally balanced with. That's why they put these thumb pegs, so you can put all the pressure. This way, you can't turn it and open it when you're drawing it back. And when they get here, then they're like, okay, I'm all the way back, and they think that they're ready, and then they let off on the pressure from there. And the way you're supposed to do it is to pull your shoulder. As you pull your shoulder and it travels, naturally that's going to turn enough to set it off. And depending on how hot or cold your release is set, it can take a little bit more than not. But when you add nerves to it, like shooting at a competition, Lancaster especially, I can't tell you how many people can't get 3 shots off in the amount of time they give you because they are locking up constantly. And so, what have you heard people say? Oh, if you can't get the shot to go off, what do they tell you to do?
Um,
If a hinge won't go off,
if a hinge won't go off,
mm-hmm.
I've heard make it hotter. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard rotate your hand. Um,
Rotate the hand is probably the most common that people say. So they'll tell you to start doing this. And I remember seeing a video on YouTube that had like 30,000 views by some kid who put it together saying, this is how you fire a hinge. I want to reach through the screen and do something terrible. Okay. That this guy was like 19, 20 years old, whatever it was. And he's telling me, oh, you've got to shoot it like this. So you see your hand, just go like that and keep twisting it until it goes off. I'm like, you buffoon. What is wrong with you? And I guarantee you, a lot of people shot like that and bad things probably happened. But Most coaches will tell you if it doesn't want to go off, start rotating your hand. You got to understand why it's locking up in the first place. You're locking up because you're tensing up. And you see what happens when you tense up, right? You start doing one of these. This is the first telltale sign someone's tensing. You get the fist. Well, when you tense up, the release can't spin. So even if you're pulling back, if you've got this release locked with all the pressure over here of your index finger, it won't spin. It'll stay the same. That's why it's not going off, people, because you're pulling. It's the same way with the resistance release, only like to a more extreme level. Because resistance releases, except for the stand, if you don't pull them at the exact right angle, which they can be very finicky about, will never go off. You can pull as hard, and it's supposed to pop at a certain amount above whatever the set poundage is. So say if you're holding 35 pounds of pull on like a 50 or a 60-pound bow, whatever it is, when you exert 37 pounds, it's supposed to go off. Well, some hinges, the way they're designed, and like I said, the stand is not like this. That's why I've always thought they make the best resistance releases they are. The way he designed his system, it'll go off as long as you put the pressure. So no matter what, it's going to go off. Now, the younger shooter who was there at your shop, on Instagram, I think his name is Next Gen Archer or something like that. And he was shooting, I think it was a stand. It was a bigger stand. But when I was watching him shoot, before we went out there and set up his sight tape, I'm looking at him and I could see him. Now, I am not an intimidating person. You know this. But I'm standing so he can see me on the line when he's shooting. And I don't know if it was he was watching, what I was doing, or he wanted to make it look as good as possible because we were watching him shoot. But he had a hard time getting it to go off because there's a resistance release. And again, even though it's a stand, you forget to do something. In his case, he was here and he thought he was pulling. His elbow wasn't even moving. And I said, listen, this is what you're going to do. Do the same thing. You hold it, let go of your brake, which is what the button is on that. And make sure your hand is relaxed. And then just start putting pressure on your ring finger. And the shot went off so fast, he's never seen it go off that easy. He went the next day, had a great shoot. I don't know if he was using my technique or not, but it made it so much easier for him. Kids, especially, if they struggle with something, they'll fight it. And he was trying to fight his way. Well, that's why he would be hitting 7, 8, 7, 8, like bouncing there. And he didn't want to re-sight in his bow. I said, no, just do it like this. Watch, when you take yourself out of the shot, and now you just let the release do its job, which is to fire, everything's in the middle. And that's the way he did it. That's the way I teach it. So I teach you to anchor here. Don't squeeze it. Just keep pressure so that it can't move. And then start, as you're pulling, increase your pressure on your ring finger. And as you increase pressure, it's just going to fire it. If you have a wind situation, you need to get off the shot off sooner, more pressure goes off. And putting pressure on a ring finger, if you look at it right here, ring finger pressure like this, I can put pressure on this. You don't see my hand moving. My wrist doesn't move. But if I put pressure on my thumb, watch what happens when I put pressure on my thumb. I can't help but move my wrist. It happens because this has got a bigger connection point than this thing does. So that's why I teach that method of shooting and why I insist on handhelds. You can get it to go off sooner. You control it more. You have more command over what you're doing. The opposite of command is what we see some guys shooting with today. Some of the most successful professional archers are what they call command shooters now. When they have a very bad day, you'll know about it because things go sideways. But some of them, I won't mention any names. If you listen to different podcasts, they'll announce who they are because they're not shy about the way they shoot. And they will set their trigger so light that you can literally go and it'll go off because it's that light. Getting a bow to go off Yeah, if you focus on the system, fine. For a professional, somebody who only does this for a living, they can get away with that because unlike most normal human beings who practice once a week, twice a week, an hour here, an hour there, even if they're shooting in a program and they're firing 3, 4 days a week, it's like an hour and a half most. These guys are shooting 8, 9 hours a day.
Hmm.
So they can learn to control that. Because the most important part of, even if you have this set for a hair trigger and it goes off, it's not what goes on here. Although, like I said, the rocker angle is a big thing. It's what happens here and what you do after the shot. And most people screw this up, even if they master this on a hair trigger, because as soon as they let go, they do one of these numbers. They're trying to see behind where the arrow went. Unless you can put all that together, setting this thing super, super hot is a super, super bad idea. So I don't tell them to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had some students in the past, she'll remain nameless, who I could not set a hot trigger on because she wanted it to go off faster. Yes. But a hot trigger was bad for her because a lot of times she set it off while she was drawing back. She didn't realize she was doing this polling and this will go off. She didn't realize that as she brushed it across her face as she was going to anchor, it would set it off. So I always had her set heavier than not. And when you're training with any kind of release, people, I mean this. If you're shooting a button or you're shooting a wrist strap or you're shooting a hinge, when you're learning to release, set it hotter, not hotter, colder. Make it harder for you to screw it up. Do you think that's true?
I totally agree with that.
Because you've seen the consequences when it's too hot, right?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, so what do you see with people? Most people, what they start out with a wrist strap and then they migrate to something else, or they kind of stick with it.
Um. Usually, I see a lot of things. I mean, I see people will go from have an index and they'll stick with an index into competition. I've seen I have seen people go from an index to a thumb. I've seen people go from an index to a hinge. Um, that's what I did. Uh, but I've seen a lot. Um, yeah, it really depends on the person and varies, but and what they're trying to do.
Well,
You know?
like we talked about on another episode, when I start people off in their brand new green, I mean the whole bit, I usually start them off with a recurve
Same.
because this, folks, this is a release, whether you like to admit it or not. It's still mechanical in nature because guess what? You have to let the string go. So if you don't learn how to use these, all you're doing when you add a release to it is you're adding an extension onto these. And the extension is just a mechanical piece that does it a little bit more efficiently that you can do it. But at the same time, it could screw it up too. So I always preach learn how to use the part, then learn how to use the accessory. You're learning how to use the part, which involves the shoulder and everything, on a recurve. And even if you've been shooting for 25 years, I don't care. I've taken people who've been shooting for a lot longer than that, who would probably assassinate me in public if I told people who they were, who they don't get that. And then when I showed them that this is just an extension and I put them on a recurve, which what was the word that he told me, a guy that I worked with? Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna look dumb if I shoot a recurve like that. I'm like, why? Because you haven't picked up a recurve ever in your life and you're mid 50s now. Um, and he's like, yeah, I mean, who shoots a recurve? I'm like, a lot of people. A lot of people. It's actually making a big comeback right now.
Bare bow and longbow are. I mean, they just added longbow to Lancaster like 2 years ago now.
And
Crazy.
to be honest with you, I would rather hunt, depending on where I'm at, I would rather hunt with a recurve than hunt with a compound because A, I can control it. B, I've been doing it since I was gay big. Um, and C, there's not a hell of a lot that can go wrong with it,
Exactly.
except you. There's no real moving parts except for the string and the stick, and that's basically all there is to it. So the more you complicate things, like when you go from just shooting with your fingers, and people, way back then, there was a division for people to shoot compound with fingers. I think there's still some people who do it, but I I started out before there were releases, and I shot compound for a good 5 or 6 years with fingers and a finger tab or whatever. Back in the days of 75 and 80 pound bows, when you had, if you were lucky, 50, 60% let off, shooting with fingers sucked. I mean, it sucked. So the luxuries you have today with 80 and 90% let off
And a release.
and the release. Well, this is too hard to hold. This is too hard to pull. It's 90% let off and you have a mechanical release. You poor thing, really. Seriously. Um, I'm talking to Anthony from Off Center, who's got that new podcast, which if you listen to the first couple episodes, it's actually pretty good.
Nice.
When we get on there, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring up that sort of thing. We did it the old way, and these kids are complaining about the newfangled stuff and all the advantages. It's too hard. Give it a rest. It's not too hard. You got it easy. Um, I came from the Stone Age. Some people would say literally, but I came from the Stone Age when we didn't have all this stuff. To me, technology just makes things more efficient, but more complicated and more likely for something to go terribly wrong if you're not careful. Um, I'm happiest with a string and a stick. That's all it is. I shoot compound, yes. I shoot compound a very long way. Yeah. But that's what I do. Master one thing, then move on to the next. I think people just try to jump from A to Z without taking the time to grow in the middle somewhere. And you can't skip steps. If you don't learn one of your principles when it comes to shooting, you don't learn arm control, pulling, you don't learn how to actually release. And the best way to learn how to release is with your fingers, because if you try to do this on purpose, it doesn't work. It's called plucking. And if you just relax it as you're pulling, it'll slide right off you and it's just gone. Um, if you can do that, then you can definitely, once you know your principle, you can apply it to this. That's all there really is to it. So I remember when you were saying, oh, you want to get my opinion on why I do that. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, why I do that. It also has to do with the fact that some of my previous students, who will remain nameless, but there's at least 5 or 6 of them that I can think of, were complete and total control freaks who wanted to have success instantly. And if I had gone through that whole process, even though I started with them when they were like 8-year-old girls, there would have been a problem. So the release helped them out. But yeah, they would go completely psychopath on me if I kept them on a recurve for more than 3 or 4 weeks when they started. They would just lose their minds. So instant gratification, put them on release. They just learned how to do everything and adapt to it. That's why they did well with it. But the average person, if you don't learn how to do this stuff, YouTube is not the place to learn. I don't care who you talk to. Not the place to learn. No, 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 no. No, don't do it. If you want to watch John Dudley, I am fine with that. He at least will teach you responsibly. But some of the other people out there, and y'all seeing me stare into the camera like this because I'm looking through your souls, they don't like you. Those people don't care. They want numbers. And if it's more fantastic, they're going to do it. You've watched videos. You've seen all the craziness out there, haven't you, John?
Oh yeah. I remember a few years ago there were those two guys that were doing claimed the first thing you do when you get a compound bow, draw it back without an arrow and fire it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
they claimed, and it was a spoof, but there was nothing really about it being a spoof. Um, in the video, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you do this, and then right after that, it aligns all the it makes the bow shoot better." And he literally and then it has a cutscene, and he takes his bow and he shoots an arrow, and it hits right in the bullseye. And I'm like, that was edited so hard. Don't do that.
which probably took him 57 takes to do in the first place, and he was only standing 5 feet away from the target, and they cut it all together to make it look good. Um, I mean, I remember back in the day in Vegas, a certain bow company did have somebody running around from door to door,
Yep.
all the pros and all that, dry firing their bow to prove they're indestructible. Okay. I can't imagine how many people saw something like that and thought that applied to everything. Manufacturing standards are not the same anymore. So that was way back when. They were producing a much smaller amount of bows. So you could probably get away with something like that. But now, if you look at the number of bows Matthews, Hoyt, anybody like that producing, I don't think they'll try to do something like that because it would be insane. But that's the sort of thing that gave rise to people like the people you saw on YouTube doing that stupid test. Because I guarantee you they saw somebody who thought about it. And, look, I can do all this. No, you can't. But anything else to add on this release thing?
No, I think that answers all my questions.
All right. Well, just a recap on the event that we had. When was it? Last week now? A week before? I
I think
forget.
2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago now. Overall, it was a great turnout that we had over there. We had a lot of people. We set up, I don't know, I thought I was outside with the side tapes an awful lot. We set up quite a few
Yeah.
side tapes
Yeah.
that day, including yours again. And did you
Yep.
use that tape? And is it a
Not
little
yet.
bit better now?
Not yet. It is better,
Okay.
yes. It is much better, but yeah,
You got to try it out.
yeah.
And the the software that we use for it, which is built for it, they just released another update for it, where now, if you follow their instructions, you don't need a rangefinder. You don't need a chronograph. You can do it with your phone.
Hmm.
You just
Interesting.
have to. Yeah, it's technology that I'm familiar with. I'm not going to get into how, but I'm just going to say I know that technology. I know what they're doing, and essentially, one of the things I saw on a video on YouTube, because I needed a good kick and needed to see it, some guy not affiliated with them was shooting one, comparing it to a Garmin. A Garmin, for those of you who don't know how much one of those things costs, is what, 550, $600
600.
now? 600. Okay. And his phone with the app set up on a tripod, which probably cost $20 for the tripod, was within a foot of the Garmin, testing the speed. And all it does, it looks at the arrow as it flies by. I know what the embedded part of it is. I know how it gets away with it, but it's using the sound to act as the trigger marker, and then it's using the camera to pick up the rest. And he was off by only a foot. And for all I know, he was more accurate than the Garmin, because I've seen two Garmins out of the box give me two different results. And I'm not saying the Garmin's a bad product. They're a gigantic company and they make some really good stuff. It's just that when you see something like that, you got to wonder, do I buy a $40 a year program and do it with my phone and buy a tape measure that probably cost me $20? Or do I buy a $600 Garmin? If they're within a foot of each other, do you really think I care? I mean, it's not going to replace a lab radar. I can tell you that right now. Though if he does what I think he's going to do, maybe it will. But you know why we use the lab radar, because it gives you different speeds at different distances. You can actually tell the decline of the arrow as it travels through the different ranges, and know how fast it was when it was at 45 or how fast it was going when it hit 90. You can tell because it's a Doppler radar, and that gives you the actual precision. The further you can shoot that thing and have the lab radar on it, the more accurate your sight tape is going to be. When we're shooting by your shop, the most we do is 50 yards, back and forth. But that's because of limitations and safety and people who like to walk in front of us while we're trying to shoot things, or drive their car in front of us when we're trying to shoot. Yeah, next time, Whew, don't get me started. I'm just gonna let it go. Um, but that sort of thing, the
Next
further
time
it
we'll
is,
do
the
it
more accurate you
on
get.
Sunday.
What's that?
Next time we'll do it on a Sunday.
On a Sunday or a Saturday, it's fine. It
Well,
doesn't make.
Sundays certain people aren't there.
Oh, what a shame. That's all I can say. He's not there on a Sunday. Ooh, goody. Yeah, talk about a death wish. You want to just back right up into us. Okay, cool. Sure. Anyway, so the further it is, the more accurate your tape is going to be. You have a larger sampling of data. And I actually just have to make a string for my hunting bow, which is my verdict, which I forgot to ask you guys to make me a string, whatever. The next time I get out there, if you guys can make me a string for it, it'd be great.
Yep, no
Uh,
problem.
and I can just match that up. It should be fine because my string just went to hell, and it wasn't the one that you guys made me a set for my target bow, and that thing is like glass. It's perfect. This is one that I got from another manufacturer. I ain't going there. Don't get me started on a rant that'll be so ugly. Because they're not exactly cheap, and I bought this because I needed it fast. It lasted me 2.5 months before it started popping strands.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Don't get me to go there. But so that's my hunting bow. Yes, people, I hunt with a verdict. It's a 37-inch bow. I don't hunt with a 30-inch bow or even a 28. For shame on me. I hunt with a long bow. Um, I'm going to set that bow up with my sight tape, and I'll probably have the lab radar out recording it up to like 90 or something like that if I can get that far, so I can get the most accurate. I may never shoot over 35 yards with this damn thing, but
But the more accurate you can get, why not?
because if I'm going to shoot 3D with it, well, we all know what attack is like. When you go to attack, 130 yards. Okay, fine. Um, so we'll do that again. Um, you guys are just getting into the middle of the hunting season, pre-hunting season swing over there. It's starting to get busy yet or not?
It's starting to get busy, yeah.
So I would say that maybe we'll do one more event that is on a Sunday when it's not as busy. But if you told people we were doing the free lab radar tapes and all that in the middle of that chaos pre hunting season,
Goodness.
we would probably have so many people out there. Now we do have 2 lab radars, so we could technically run 2 sight-ins at a time. Because the most time consuming is the sighting in. The measuring of the bow and all that is pretty much straightforward. And then once I have the 2 of them, it's just putting them into the computer, generate the tape. There you go. Have a nice day. You are done. Um, unless, and I'm going to make a video just about how y'all shoot your bow when you're verifying if the tape is right. Um, but yeah, so I'll do that. It's it's the greatest thing I've ever seen as far as making people accurate right away. That kid, like I said, we set up his tape and never shot 40 yards before, and bang. And another guy who was there the first time never shot 40 yards. And he was banging away at 40 yards.
Heck, I think that day we had 2, 3 guys that were there to buy bows, and they were like, "Can we do this too?"
Absolutely. You know what I mean? When we go there, we try to help as many people as possible. And it was a fun time. And we had a couple of people walk away with these, in case you
Yep.
don't remember. Um, and yeah, folks, I put a video out last week about these and all that. I don't know how long I'm going to keep it up, but it was hard to get through. I did it. And I've gotten a pretty decent response from the video, but yeah, it's a little embarrassing. Yeah, so I just kind of may not keep it up too much longer. But I said I was going to do it, so I put it up. But yeah, these coins I gave to a couple of people. Okay, and I don't know. You have your coin. How do you think they came out?
They're beautiful. They really are beautiful.
They're heavy. They're beautiful. They're good to keep in your pocket. If you want to keep it on your desk, it's a paperweight. Um, Purpose that I use for it, you know, just to remind you of something or whatever. It actually, that kid next gen, he uses it to. He's going to use it to remind him, like when he's doing something wrong, and he can focus, like, what am I missing, and figure it out that way.
Hmm.
Um, depending on where you're going with this, placed inside your hand, it becomes a weapon. I mean, there's a lot of different things. But if someone needs it, then, and you see me over there, I usually have a few of them with me. We can probably get you one or whatever. But yeah, that's about all I had. Anything else?
That's everything I had.
All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for this episode of On the Line. We thank you for joining us. The website, highpowerarchery.com, is changing, I think, the end of next week as far as what it's going to look like. As we all know, I don't coach that much anymore, so it's going away from the coaching side, but I'm still going to offer some coaching online and also tips and advice if you just need, email us or something like that. You can email us at highpowerarchery@gmail.com. Jonathan's contact info will also be on the notes for this podcast. Um, and Jonathan also does coaching. If you're in the Milford, Pennsylvania area, it's worth taking the drive out there, and Jonathan can help you. I've actually showed him some of the things that I do when I'm coaching, and people like the way he teaches. So it's worth it going out there. Uh, Maybe we can get another seminar going over there one of these days. We'll see how that all works out. But like I
Definitely.
said, if you have a question, just reach out and ask. If you like and subscribe to the podcast, you'll know whenever a new video comes out. And that's the most important thing. And you can do that on Spotify. You can do that on YouTube. You can subscribe or follow the podcast on any particular platform you happen to listen to it on. I actually talked to somebody at the shop when I was there who had no idea that these podcasts were video because they never saw them on Spotify. I said, well, it's also on YouTube, whatever. So if you've never seen this ugly mug before, prepare to be scared because you go to YouTube, Spotify, and that's going to scare you. But so, like I said, that's all there is for now. Next week, we'll be back with another episode. As we always say, it's never goodbye. It's until next time. So, till then, like we always say, shoot straight and stay safe. We'll see you again.